Long overdue, but the now titled series, Fran-Dev, is about to unfold. Franchise development was kind of plain and long-winded, so I suppose this shortening will do. Allow me, in Denton, by the way you can call me Dan, to take you back almost 20 years. October 1997. The second game in the Crash Bandicoot franchise was released on the PlayStation in the US, with the European and Japanese release arriving the following December. The game, titled Crash Bandicoot 2 Cortex Strikes Back, expands on the story straight from the standard ending of the original Crash. Cortex plummets from the skies onto the island, miraculously unharmed, only to discover a power crystal within a cave upon impact from his fall.
Crystals. Of course.
1 year later, Cortex constructed an entire space station thanks to the power of that very crystal. But now, he hungers for more power. Cortex's newly recruited lab assistant, Dr. N. Jin, informs him that they will require precisely 25 crystals to reach full capacity, but they are unable to retrieve them through normal means.
How do you expect to retrieve them when we don't have any Earthbound operatives left?
You fool! Do you think I'm unaware of the situation? If we don't have any friends left on the surface, then we need to find an enemy.
Engine has a missile lodged in his head. That must have hurt. Engine fills the spot of which Embryo once did. Meanwhile, Crash is taking a nap in the jungle before he's awoken by his sister Coco.
Crash, my battery is fried. Make yourself useful, big brother, and bring an extra battery for me.
The charming marsupial that he is, Crash jumps straight into action. A short stroll into the jungle and Crash evaporates and materializes in a peculiar-looking room. Cortex himself appears through a hologram in the center of the room to talk to Crash.
Well. If it isn't Crash Bandicoot.
Cortex claims that he needs Crash's help to retrieve power crystals for him in order to save the Earth. Crash, being a bit light-headed, goes along with it for now. I mean, he appears to be trapped in this warp room, so not much else you can do. Of course, as players can tell this is just one great big trap by Cortex to overthrow the Earth. The plot unfolds through hologram cutscenes which I'll leave you to find out for yourself if you wish. Crash's basic controls are intact. If you're using a DualShock controller, you can use the left analog stick to move with more precision. The circle button will now crouch. Moving while holding circle will crawl. Doesn't seem particularly useful right now. But if you try to crouch while moving, Crash will perform a slide. And if you jump during a slide, you get a slide jump. You'll gain a lot more forward momentum, which comes in handy for clearing obstacles and pits safely. This resembles the roll jump from Donkey Kong Country, as it also functions as another attack for Crash. As a box breaker, the spin attack is much more potent. You can string together these three commands to perform a few other moves, but the most notable would be the body slam. So the room that Crash has appeared in? This is the warp room. Each warp room gives you access to a set of 5 levels. Despite the levels being numbered, you can visit levels in any order you wish, meaning that the idea of travelling across the islands in a specific order has been scrapped, and all the levels share no real relation to one another. But unlike the first game, Crash is warping all over the world to retrieve crystals. You can also manually save the game to a memory card. Even if you don't save, you could blow through every single one of your lives and it merely kicks you out of the level. Never look back on this one, Naughty Dog. In this day and age of design to meet the consumer's lifestyle, this is a welcome change.
Play again, Crash.
The triangle button will bring up the heads-up display, just like before. This time we have the addition of the box counter. It looks like the game is acknowledging how many boxes we've broken through the HUD, instead of being greeted with, well, yeah, you remember that. Quick side note, you can find the Fran-Dev episode of the original Crash Bandicoot by clicking somewhere around here. Back on topic, this box counter doesn't quite fix the problem in its entirety. At this point, we just have the option to backtrack. Speaking of that wretched fiend, that's definitely an issue with a few levels in Crash 2. On multiple occasions, the game forces you to backtrack through levels with alternate routes. I can only think of one point which backtracking was required in the original Crash. That would be the level Cortex power. They anticipated that by programming the camera to pan back fairly generously once you're facing towards the screen. We already have an adjusted perspective in this level, and as far as I'm aware, it works out just fine. The box counter in the HUD means that the box gems have returned, though this time around it's more forgiving. You no longer need to complete the level in one shot. Checkpoints are actually useful when trying to collect gems. So Crash Bandicoot 2 is a far more inviting game than the original. There are a few levels in the game which will include alternate routes in the form of skull routes. If you can reach these points on your first life, you can give it a shot. Even if you die on the skull route, you could jump right back in as much as you please. Some levels have subtle hints towards secret warps within the level. These warps will send you to an inaccessible parts of other levels or a standalone secret level. Crash Bandicoot 2 contains 25 levels and 2 secret levels, exactly the same as the original game, though Crash 2 has one less boss battle than its predecessor. The bonus rounds return, with a few tweaks adding to the overall attitude of making the game that bit more forgiving. You'll be required to reach a particular point of a level, step onto a platform to transport to a 2D platforming section similar to the original game, primarily using arrangements of crates for puzzles and platforming. This time you can die and keep restarting each bonus round until you make it to the end. This adjustment makes things a lot less frustrating since, unlike the original game, breaking each of these crates does count towards obtaining the box gem for each level. The level layout is much the same as its predecessor. Andy Gavin developed a new engine for the game, drastically increasing the development specs. This included faster loading and a higher polygon draw rate. The game explores a broader variety of environments. The themes span all across the world, like the jungle, the Arctic, a space station, and the sewers. The soundtrack complements the game much better. A handful of the tracks in the original Crash were more like ambient environmental tracks. Crash 2's soundtrack seems more layered, and the tracks emphasize a stronger melody this time around. That being said, I'd still be humming throughout a playthrough of either of these games. The game offers more variety of gameplay. The boulder chase makes a return with more obstacles to get in your way. The hog has been replaced by a polar cub in these Arctic levels, which is always a delight to play, except for these sections of ice which sometimes have crates placed too awkwardly, and just like Hog Wild, you can't stop moving. I always end up having to kill myself to try again from the last checkpoint. So yeah, this trial and error method kind of sucks you out of the pace of the level. Crash can use a jetboard for crossing water in the stream levels, and a jetpack for the space station levels. With Crash's extra mobility, he can even use monkey bars in the sewer levels to pass over boiling pipes. But alas, with all this praise we come across a problem. Once you've collected all 5 crystals from a warp room, you can step onto this center podium and move on to the boss battle. Once you've put them down, you move on to the next warp room. Ripperoo makes his return, just avoid his attacks, and that's about it. Kinda defeats himself, honestly, and unfortunately, that describes too many of these boss battles. They're not badly designed by any means, but instead just neglect to present any kind of challenge. Dr. Neocortex, the final boss, is no exception. The game does have an alternate ending for collecting all of the gems. This time, the completion is a bit more rewarding. Emphasis on a bit. Again, it skips the last boss. No final form or anything, which is already a pretty lame boss battle. It really does leave something to be desired towards endgame. Okay, so we've got some positives and negatives. So let's put into perspective how Crash 2 ranks up against the original game. Crash 2 looks and animates better. Crash's extra moves give him more mobility and options for more precision platforming than the original game. The raw level design is more varied and compensates for Crash's extra capabilities. It also sounds a lot better with a more lively soundtrack. There's much more voice acting in Crash 2 with improved audio quality. Crash 2 has a wider variety of level themes, but less of them. The gem collecting is more forgiving, and the manual save feature was a necessity. As part of the Fran-Dev format, I'm going to introduce a bar chart in order to represent roughly how I see the franchise evolving per release in terms of their quality. The first game establishes the foundation to compare the successors against. Despite the backtracking interfering with some of the level design and the weak boss battles, virtually every other aspect of the game excels over the original Crash Bandicoot, and definitely raises the bar for 3D graphics found on the PlayStation. I hope that all makes sense, because that's where I'm going to bring this to an end. Next Fran-Dev episode, Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped. Crash Bandicoot 2 in the bag. I have a long-standing quote from a while back. At the end of one of my videos, I was talking about a mystery game I was going to cover, and I quote, "It's different." As vague as it is, what I meant was that it's a huge contrast to the games I've covered before, or plan to cover at a later date. It's niche. Yeah, you could say that. It has a niche market. The video's scripted, it's recorded, but I've had to let it set, like a trifle, with a jelly that goes wibble wobble when it moves. Oh, was that a hint? I don't know, you'll have to wait and see. So please, look forward to that. Comments and feedback are always really nice. Subscribe if you so wish, entirely your choice. Till next time.